I'm done doubting Jimmy Butler. Like, I'm done doing it. I doubted him a couple of times. He's made it to the finals a couple of times. I'm not going to do it again.
He's earned that,
Right.
and it speaks to how great he's been in the postseason for me to kind of agree with you.
been
Because
amazing.
if we're just looking at this from a treetop view, Jimmy's not the same player. The thing that we all feared that was coming, I think, is approaching, if it's not already here. And it might have begun with that Denver series where he had earned a total pass for his performance there. He was super passive. It was shades of LeBron against the Mavs. He didn't really have faith in his shot until it was already too late in that series. And now he's going up against teams that are built similarly, and there's this weird passiveness, and you have someone that will be taking the shots instead of him, and you're just wondering what happened to the Jimmy buckets that I loved.
Dan made a good point about the Eastern Conference at the moment, though, because I have a greater fear for the Heat in a one-game sample against the Hawks or the Bulls if they lose the first play-in game than I will in a 7-game series against anyone except for maybe Boston. And even then, if you told me one game against Trae Young, DeJounte Murray, and the Hawks, or 7 games against Boston, I might have the same sort of feeling, because when you have the best coach in the league and you have a guy who's proven it over and over again in the postseason, the one thing you could take away from that game against Indiana, despite the loss, is once again with the Heat coming out flat. They came out flat in 3 straight games. They got blown out of the building in the first 12 minutes against Philadelphia and had to claw their way back over and over with runs, had a lead late in that game and blew it with another stretch of poor performing offense. Came out flat against the Rockets on the second night of back-to-backs and somehow were able to claw their way back and win. Against Indiana, same thing. But that time, it was Jimmy Butler turning it on in the second half, getting to the line over and over and over and over again in that third quarter, slowing down a fast-paced Indiana team and showing you, hey, for at least a series, I can be the guy that puts the team on my back. And when you look at last year's run, that's actually all that happened.
That wasn't a series.
He did it for
Wait a
one.
minute.
No, he did it for one series.
Wait. They needed it for a game against Indiana. They got it for a quarter. Now you're asking for it for a series. For the last 5 or 6 games, Jimmy Butler needs to get a ton of foul calls, needs to allow the Heat defense to set up and be an elite playoff defense. And when this is Jimmy time, he announced it's Jimmy time already. Josh Hart says no more side quests. April is about the main quest. He's putting up a lot of under 20-point games, and they needed him in that one. That was a playoff game. You don't want to be in the play-in game? Then you got to win the one against Indiana so you can have the tiebreakers. And then afterward, we're going to Jimmy's locker, and he's saying, well, we got to do it the hard way again. When do we ever do it the easy way? Well, you could have done it an easier way by winning that one, and I just don't think that you can continue to ask. And I understand, Stugotz, why it is that you're saying I'm done doubting Jimmy Butler. But at this age, with this many fouls on his body, landing on the floor this many times, at some point that's going to run out. And what it's going to look like is like this season.
Of course, but it's also the same conversation we had last year. And I'm not saying that at 34 years old with another year running to the NBA Finals that his body's not in a different place than it was a year ago. But against Indiana, they started 0 of 8 from 3. While Indiana started 5 of 7 from 3, and that's why they got blown out in that first quarter, and they had to claw their way back. It's a similar conversation to what we had last year, which is when this team hits their threes, they're tremendous offensively and have an opportunity. They're the 4th best defensive team in the league. They've had one of the best defensive ratings since the turn of the calendar year, specifically since February. And look, is it entirely possible that they lose 2 play-in games and they're out, or that they lose a first-round series and they're out? And I'm having to eat crow saying, you know what? Yeah, Jimmy looks a step slower, and this team wasn't built properly, etc. Sure. But on the same token, you look at that Eastern Conference, and in a 7-game series against any of those teams with all the different weapons that the Heat do have to shut them down, I'm not ready to give up quite yet.
You won't be until they've lost. We know this about you.
Yeah, but I don't think that's unearned.
You will not. You will not.
That's all of Heat Twitter.
No, but that's not unearned. Like, when you look at this team and what they've been, they have the most playoff wins of any core of the last 4 years. That's not by mistake.
I'm not saying it's unearned. I'm saying that the moment that they lose, you will have been wrong because you will never think that they will lose.
I'm happy to be wrong about something when I'm looking at a team and seeing what their entire season has been, seeing what the acquisitions have been and the way that they've been effective. Tyler Hero's come back, had been really good offensively.
You are not happy to be wrong.
No, I'm fine. I will happily sit here and say, yeah, I was wrong about this team. But as I look at it exactly the same way as last year, there's a 4-game difference between the 3 seed and the 8 seed. Like, it's not crazy to think that not only Miami, Philadelphia could make a really deep run into the postseason.
I genuinely want to be wrong about the Heat, the way that I was spectacularly wrong about them last year. I think you're asking a lot, and you're putting a lot of faith in a team that just hasn't shown it this year. Even last year, there were moments where you think, like, oh, if this team can put it all together, Milwaukee certainly doesn't want to play them. I just think that look, the proof is in the pudding. Anytime they've gone up against a good team that is reasonably healthy, they lose. They lose. They have shown you there's about 6 teams in that Eastern Conference. They're not better than. And I don't see them magically getting better than them, even though they've shown us in recent history that they can do something unprecedented. You're asking a lot for history to repeat itself.
I don't agree with this part of it, okay? They've been unhealthy. They've used a lot of different lineups, and the difference between 3 and 7 and 8 is enough that I don't believe there are that many teams in the conference that are better than them as a playoff team with their coach making 7 games worth of adjustments against a single opponent. I don't believe there are 6 or 7 teams better than them in this conference. But there's one that clearly is. That Boston team is better than the Milwaukee team that they needed Giannis to get hurt in the middle of that series to beat last year.
And they were going to beat the Bucks whether Giannis was healthy or not. They were already up 2-1.
Jeremy, that's fine to say, Jeremy, but Giannis did indeed get hurt in the middle of that series. Well, he missed a game.
Yeah, Jimmy missed games against the Knicks. Like, I don't
know.
Being a homer, bro.
Okay, missing games against the Knicks did not affect the Bucks series.
No, but I'm saying that Giannis missing games didn't affect it the same way that you're making it now. Revision.
Being a homer, bro.
Looking at the Heat right now, sitting at number 15, Bronny's probably still going to be there. 15.
This is such a frustrating season for the Heat because 4th place is 16 games out. They're so close to having home court advantage in the first round, and instead they're in play-in purgatory because of losses like Sunday's game where they blow a big lead, a game they had to have. Crazy, frustrating team.
If the Heat scored 8 more points in the last 2 games against Philadelphia and Indiana, 8 points, they're a game out of the 3rd seed, and we're having an entirely different conversation.
If the Bucks don't fall apart in Game 5 when Giannis is healthy, you'd be yourself with Milwaukee having to play the rest of that series against a healthy Giannis.
I want the 8 seed. I want the Celtics right away. I do.
Take them out early.
Yeah, before they get on a roll. I want them right away.
Who's I?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
You're a Knicks guy.
Yeah.
And if I lived in New York, I would have been able to see more of the eclipse, by the way.
Yes.
Lots of ifs going around. Also, Mike, you said the proof is in the pudding. I thought Puddin was buried in the backyard, Greg.
He is. God rest his soul. I believe he is. I don't remember where because it's been so long ago, and the shoebox by now has long disintegrated as well as its contents. But
This is the new and unimproved Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz. Gamble on by DraftKings.